If you're unfamiliar with what ANA business class is, then you probably haven't watched enough flight review videos on YouTube. For the vast majority of us that are familiar with the legendary product that is a long-haul ANA business class, you're also probably aware of how difficult it is to book it. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to snag 2 round-trip ANA business class seats this past week for just 85,000 credit card points and miles. And since it was a very lengthy process and I learned a ton, I thought I would go ahead and make today's video and tell you all the secrets of the booking process. Now, there are 2 main ways to fly to Japan from the United States in a premium business class product. The first one is going to be with Japan Airlines, and the other being All Nipon Airways, or ANA. And before we get into the booking process of ANA and all the research that went into it and the actual steps you need to take to book the flight, I thought I would explain why I'm choosing ANA over Japan Airlines, which is another fantastic way for you to fly from the United States to Japan in a really great business class seat. Well, one of the reasons is because I actually have an upcoming Japan Airlines business class flight early next year. That's a crazy thing to say, that next year I'm flying to Japan twice, both in business class, one with Japan Airlines and one with ANA. It literally doesn't feel real. But because I already had one flight to Japan and back in Japan Airlines business class, and not knowing the next time I would actually visit Japan, I thought if I'm gonna go again, I really want to try to snag some ANA business class seats. And another reason on top of that is that recently Japan Airlines business class availability has really dried up. When I booked it, as you saw, I used Avios and American Airlines miles. Since then, I did a ton of research. I did a ton of digging with British Airways on American Airlines, and there just seems to be hardly no availability at calendar open for that product anymore. I'm not sure what happened in the last few months since when I booked that trip and now, but it's just really hard to find any good availability. And what I'm showing you guys right now at the bottom is basically the only United States to Tokyo availability right now with Japan Airlines, and I think there's just 2 seats open. And the other reason, and really the main thing that even convinced me to do this trip in the first place, is the fact that there is a 40% transfer bonus going on right now from Chase points over to Virgin Atlantic. And if you don't know, that is the means in which we actually book this award seat with ANA. And if you're wondering why the heck would a Chase transfer bonus to Virgin Atlantic matter in the first place, well, that's actually the way in which you book an ANA award business class seat. Technically speaking, yes, you can transfer your American Express MR points over to ANA to book a round trip award ticket with them, but there's a lot of nuances and caveats that come with that, mainly being the fact that once you initiate your transfer of Amex points over to ANA, it'll take a couple of business days for those points to arrive over on ANA's end. And so in those days of transit, the award seat you were going to book can easily be snatched up by someone else, and then you'll have a bunch of points sitting over with ANA that you're not able to use, and you can't transfer them back to American Express. And so pretty much for that reason alone, that's how I decided Virgin Atlantic was going to be the means in which I went ahead and booked this ANA business class award seat. And so not only does the 40% transfer bonus from Chase to Virgin Atlantic help out tremendously, it makes it even better that one-way prices in business class ANA are already phenomenal compared to other carriers. Taking a look at this chart, you can see the one-way prices in Virgin Atlantic miles for ANA award class seats. We are focused on the last 2 rows in particular. That is going to be from Japan to the Western United States or Canada, and also Japan to pretty much the rest of the United States and Mexico. You can see that from the Western US, it'll cost you 52,500 Virgin points to book an ANA business class award seat, and it costs just 7,500 points more, a total of 60,000 Virgin Atlantic points to book an ANA business class seat. And so a round trip itinerary would typically cost 120,000 points, which is still not even a terrible price. But with a historic 40% transfer bonus, that brings the required Chase points down to just 85,000. And again, that is a lot of Chase points, but with the sign-up bonuses of most Chase cards hovering in the range from 60 to 90,000 with the ink cards, that's basically one welcome offer for a round trip ANA ticket that has a cash price of anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000. So, okay, we know we want to fly ANA business class. We know we're going to use Virgin points to book this itinerary. Now the question is, how do we find availability for our flight, and how do we actually go ahead and book the ticket? Well, my friends, let me introduce you to Seats.Aero, which is what I'm coining as a super tool. I've used a lot of tools in the award availability tool space, but I think with this most recent booking of mine, Seats.Aero just became my favorite award booking tool of all time. Now, I'm going to do a live demo of the site and how I found my availability in just a few minutes, but I wanted to kind of show you guys the process of using this tool, which helps you find flight award availability with basically every airline in the world. Now, I first start off looking for ANA business class availability at calendar open, which basically means booking as far out in advance as possible. And you can see that I'm searching from Tokyo to the United States, filtering for the business class cabin, and we were only given a few results. It looked even worse the other way, going outbound to Tokyo. Basically from the United States to Tokyo, there was no availability at the time of filming. And so the next thing I tried tried was T14 availability, or basically within 2 weeks of departure. Between now and 2 weeks, what kind of flights are there to be booked? And as you can see, there is a ton of availability going from Tokyo over to the United States. There was basically around 10 different flights you could choose from to transfer points over to Virgin Atlantic and then book that ANA business class seat. And if you're wondering, hey, these say United flights, why are we talking about Virgin Atlantic and ANA when this is a United flight? And well, the reason for that is that ANA and United are both in the Star Alliance program. And so through United's website, you can actually see and search for ANA business class award availability. You could do this on ANA's website, but since you're only allowed to book round trip tickets, it's really tedious and really time consuming using ANA's website to actually search for these flights in particular. And so that's why anytime we see the United logo or the United program pop up for 110,000 points in business class, that just means that is an ANA flight bookable through either United or Virgin. But since it only costs 60,000 points one way in Virgin, we're definitely going to be choosing that option. Now, at the time of filming, the outbound to Japan from the United States is looking a little bit slimmer, but there still are a few good options from Washington Dulles, Seattle, Chicago O'Hare, or San Francisco. You could choose any of those airports on those dates, and you could book an ANA business class flight through Virgin Atlantic. Now, there's a really interesting thing that I found when doing all this research on Seats.aero, trying to find these ANA business class seats through United at either calendar open or right before departure. And the main thing that I found is you're going to run into one of two instances. The first one is the one on top, where there's only one seat available. If you hover over the business class price on your PC, you will be able to see this little pop-up, which shows you that it's a direct flight, it's operated by ANA, and there's only one seat available. So let's say you had two people wanting to take a trip. You could only book one of these flights in business class, and then the other would have to be booked in economy, and that's not really a fun trip dynamic. And the other instance is I was finding anywhere from 2 to 8 seats available in ANA business class through the search tool. So let's say you had the points required, the 500,000 points needed. You could book 8 people in ANA business class through Virgin Atlantic, again, through using the search tool and then going and booking directly with Virgin. But a really interesting note on this 1 seat versus 8 seat dilemma is that at T-14 availability, or basically between now and the next 2 weeks, most of the availability I was seeing did have multiple seats open, like anywhere from 2, 4, or again, 8 seats. But every single flight that I saw at calendar open, both going to Japan and coming back from Japan, only had 1 seat available. So if you're a solo traveler, then hey, you're in luck. You can fly to and from Japan without any stress. But for this upcoming trip in particular that I just booked, of course, I needed to get 2 tickets, one for me and one for my brother. And so that really complicated things because the availability was already sparse at calendar open, but couple that with the fact that I would need to get 2 separate tickets on 2 separate dates with no guarantee of the availability, really just wasn't making this seem like it was likely to happen. And I know what you're thinking. Well, hey, if you need 2 tickets, you're just gonna have to book a flight that departs in the next 4 days. And unfortunately, that doesn't work for my schedule. I do have a rather flexible work and life schedule in general, but booking a 10+ day international trip with around 4 days of notice just isn't something that I'm really comfortable with at the moment. And so for me, the only way I was looking to book an ANA business class award redemption was booking seats at calendar open, or basically as far in advance as I possibly can. But that also brings me to my next problem with booking ANA flights in advance and using United, and that is these 2 numbers right here, 337 days and 331 days respectively. These are how far in advance both United and Virgin Airlines can book flights, either with cash or with points. And to compare that in real time right now for United, if I wanted to book a one-way flight, I could go as far out as September 24th of 2025. I could book a flight using points or miles, and I also get to see the availability for those flights that far in advance. Unfortunately, with Virgin Atlantic, you only get to see flights as far as 331 days in advance, or for me right now, that is the 17th of September. So for United, we're all the way out here at 24 days. Virgin, we're all the way in here at 17 days. And so that creates a really interesting dilemma where we can see in advance with United the award availability, but you have to wait a week to book that award availability. And so that way on the customer side of Virgin Atlantic, they can actually see the award ticket and book it for you. And for example, on a few occasions, I actually called into Virgin Atlantic to check the availability of a few different flights. And they basically told me that unfortunately, even though you can see this award availability on United's end, we're not able to process requests until 4, 6, 12 hours in advance when that availability comes online for us. And so at this point, it's just not looking good for me. I can't book close in, and really doesn't look like I can book far in advance because the flights that are available from the United States to Tokyo are basically being snatched up as soon as they become bookable with Virgin Atlantic. And I really didn't think this trip was gonna happen until I tried one last thing that saved the day. And let me go ahead to Seats.aero and show you what happened. So this this right here is Seats.Aero, an incredibly comprehensive award availability search tool. It might look pretty complicated at first because you click the search button, and then when you go to search for flights, you're given a bunch of different options: minimum seats, operating carriers, you've got programs, alliances. You have so much different information you have to process. But basically, if you want to search for award availability like how I did, you just need to type in the origin airports being USA, the destination airports being TYO. This is going to have both Tokyo Haneda and Tokyo Narita in for those available airports. And then for departure date, if you don't have a pro account, then you won't be able to search up to a year in advance. But I'm going to be honest, if you're already looking to spend upwards of 100,000 credit card points on a single flight redemption like ANA business class, then I think it is worth it paying the $9.99 a month for this incredibly comprehensive and detailed flight availability information. You can cancel it after the month, after you book your trip, or after you do your research. But again, if you're already willing to transfer 100,000 credit card points, I think $9.99 isn't too bad. And I know this sounds like a sponsored shill, but it's not, I promise. But if you are interested, of course, I'll leave my affiliate link down below. Continuing on to search for availability with ANA on its Seats.Aero, I guess you actually do need the pro to get really nuanced, because if you just search like this, USA to Tokyo, again, at calendar open, which right now is going to be around September 17th. We'll go ahead and search for 14 days before and after. We can see a bunch of different results pop up when we're not able to filter out these results. We can see Velocity, Qantas, again, really expensive, and I'm pretty sure it's not even with Japan Airlines. No, it's with Cathay Pacific. And so with the advanced filters, we're going to go ahead and select only direct flights. And then it doesn't matter if you have the fees selected, because it is already less than $400 in fees. For minimum seats available, just keep that at 1. Doesn't really matter unless you're looking for more than 1 seat. And operating carrier, just go ahead and type in NH. That is the 2-letter initialism for ANA's flight operating code. And then we can go ahead and press search and see there is 1 flight with Velocity showing that is bookable at calendar open. Now, it doesn't seem to be available. It is an All Nipon Airways flight, and it is bookable using Virgin Australia Velocity, but I don't think that's compatible with Virgin Atlantic or United Airlines availability. So unfortunately, at the moment, there is no real-time availability from the United States to Tokyo, and flipping the availability from Tokyo to the United States and making sure we have United and Virgin Velocity selected. Actually, just go and deselect Virgin Australia. We can see there are 2 flights at calendar open, but again, they are just beyond that magical date of September 16th, because right now, although we can see this flight with United, it is ANA, and we would be able to book it with Virgin Atlantic points. On a Virgin Atlantic side of things, they don't even recognize that this flight exists because it's too far out in the future in terms of their booking calendar. And also checking the tools drop down, there is an ANA first class finder, which is very helpful. If we filter, we do see that actually there's a first class availability on February 6th. So this is bookable right now. There is only going to be, again, that 1 seat available. But if we go to first class, hey, 13-hour flight from Chicago to Narita, ANA first class. You can transfer your points to Virgin and book it. That is awesome. But unfortunately, there's just nothing else bookable right now. And so again, if this is what my availability was looking like from the United States, how did I manage to book a round trip ANA business class ticket? Well, I'll answer that nice and easy for you. My ticket departs from Mexico City. If we go ahead and search for Mexico City availability, you can see it's wide open. There's so many seats available. We can check the information and see that it is an All Nipon Airways business class flight, 14 hours in ANA business class. It is going to be on the 787-8, which isn't their best product, but still it's ANA business class. And if you're wondering, do I live in Mexico City? Nope, I do not. I'm based out of Atlanta. And so for this flight in particular, I'm going to have to position all the way over to Mexico City, which is around a 4-hour flight, or basically a round trip is going to cost me around 30,000 points and miles, plus a few dollars in taxes and fees for there and back. But I was already kind of factoring that into my price anyways, because being based in Atlanta, there's no ANA flights departing from the Atlanta airport, and so I was going to have to reposition anyways. But you can see September 3rd, September 4th, the 8th, 9th, 10th, 13th, 15th, 16th, there's literally so much availability right here. It's crazy. And so for all of these flights that are September 17th or sooner, we can book them, and that's exactly what I did. And just to show the same thing is true going from Tokyo to Mexico, the availability is a little bit less. I'm not gonna lie, 2 of these seats again were snagged up by myself and my brother, but there's still 4 dates showing if you wanted to fly from Narita to Mexico, or again vice versa from Mexico to Narita. That option is still there. And so I can't remember where in the world I heard this trick to search for Mexico availability with ANA, because sometimes it just has more, but that is the only reason this trip is happening. Last ditch effort, I typed in Mexico and was delighted to see exactly what you just saw. There's around 10 or 15 flights all departing on different days, all from Mexico City to Narita in ANA business class. But unfortunately, all of these tickets were limited to just 1 seat per day. And so what my brother and myself are are happy to do is we're actually flying out of Mexico City on different days, and we're flying back from Tokyo on different days as well. I know there's some people who might not agree with this itinerary and saying, hey, you're going to way too far of links to fly business class to Japan, but also it's business class to Japan. If I'm going to be flying 14 hours, I don't mind taking a few-hour flight to Mexico, sitting in an airport lounge, and then boarding a business class lie flat seat to Japan. In my opinion, that seems worth it to me. Now, once I found this availability, I went ahead and called into Virgin Atlantic, and I've mentioned this a few different times. That's because you aren't able to see ANA business class flights or any ANA award availability on Virgin Atlantic's website. You first have to find the availability through United or Seats.aero, which again searches United. And then once you have that flight information, you go and call Virgin Atlantic, and I'll go ahead and put that number on screen, the one that I called. It's basically their customer support number. You call in, you say, hey, I would like to book an ANA award ticket. They go, okay, what are your dates? What are your departure and return city? You give them the information, and it's either a simple, hey, this is bookable, or it's not bookable. And since I was seeing these flights on Seats.aero through United Airlines, they were able to see those same exact seats on their end. And when it came to transferring the points, I actually had like 4,000 points when I called in to book this seat. But I said, hey, I just wanted to confirm the availability was here. I have the transfer ready. I can go ahead and do that. And they said, I'll wait a few minutes for you to transfer the points. I initiated my transfer from Chase over to Virgin Atlantic. My 85,000 Chase points became 120,000 Virgin Atlantic points. And then on the phone, within 15 minutes, I had successfully transferred my points and booked my round trip business class seat from Mexico City to Narita. Now, again, my circumstances were incredibly unique in the fact that I had enough Chase points to actually transfer to Virgin in the first place. You could also just transfer 120,000 Amex points or Capital One points or Citi Thank You points. The great thing about Virgin is that basically every single major credit card issuer does transfer their points and their currency over to Virgin Atlantic miles. It just so happened that Chase was having a massive transfer bonus, which basically netted this redemption somewhere in the ballpark of like 6 to 8 cents per point. And then secondly, I needed the option to get 2 people over to Japan, not just one. And so since booking really close in, again, didn't align with my schedule or just travel preferences, booking at Calendar Open was the only accessible way to do that. And with the availability from the United States basically being nothing, Mexico City was the only option. And so that basically sums up my entire saga of searching for, finding award availability with ANA, and then booking it using Virgin Atlantic points. And so now that we are here at the end, I hope you all learned something from this video, whether it was the nuances between Virgin Atlantic and United's booking dates, or the 1 seat versus 8 seat at Calendar Open and T-14, or the fact that you could even fly from Mexico to Narita in the first place. If you've had experience booking ANA business class award seats through Virgin Atlantic or through ANA, I would just love to hear from you. This was an incredibly interesting process for me. I'm really happy that I'm done with it. My seat is booked. I've got my confirmation code, and I'll be off to Tokyo, and again, in about a year's time. But let me know down below in the comment section if there's any more questions you have about your particular booking or anything else in regards to this ANA award process. As always, though, thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. I greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoyed today's video, I've got a really great feeling you're also going to enjoy this one.